day for Modi's aviation boost. Landmark event for Indian self-reliance. Desi Jets headline this mega show. Superpower begins with defense self-reliance. Aero India is all about Aatmanirbharata.
Now, the tarmac here at Aero India has been lit up right through the day and in signature amazing fashion with aircraft from India and abroad landing here for a scintillating display. The morning saw the sky torn up by these aircraft and helicopters. Prime Minister Modi was the headline guest here at the inaugural ceremony. Take a look at all those spectacular images with which Aero India began. Ladies and gentlemen.
Next. The vast and varied terrain.
India's flagship air show.
और ये था टीम लीडर का सल्यूट हमारे मुख्य अतिथि को.
Showcasing the country's aviation might and mega Make in India opportunities. Had a dazzling beginning in Bengaluru's Yelahanka Air Base, unveiled by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. After an aerial flypast, the clear blue skies of Bengaluru taken over by breathtaking aerobatics and brilliant mid-air formations. From spectacular takeoff and flawless stunts by Sukhoi 30 MKI,
This aircraft is now running at 900 kmph.
to the display of resilience and staying power by Made in India LCH Prachand, which showed its agility and maneuverability in combat situations. To the star of the Aero show, undoubtedly the LCA Tejas, which wowed audiences with a vertical takeoff. Later performing stunning stunts and an eye-popping vertical Charlie, leaving the audience spellbound and getting a shout-out from Prime Minister Modi himself.
Scintillating LCA, the C-17 Globemaster with the Hawks of Suryakiran Aerobatic Team.
Then came the heavy lift champion, the mammoth C-17 Globemaster, star of the Indian Air Force's global mobilization and evacuation drives. Then the light-duty helicopter, indigenously designed defense asset, took to the skies, displaying heart-stopping actions. The air display was capped by a scintillating aerial spectacle by the Suryakiran aerobatic team, which drew a massive heart in the skies. The Prime Minister was accompanied by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Air Chief Marshal Chaudhari, who led the thrilling Gurukul formation. Modi's big focus was on defence and aerospace to make India Aatmanirbhar in the field of defence.
21वीं सदी का नया भारत अब न कोई मौका खोएगा और न ही अपनी मेहनत में कोई कमी रखेगा। हम कमर कस चुके हैं। जो देश दशकों से सबसे बड़ा डिफेंस इंपोर्टर था, वो अब दुनिया के 75 देशों को डिफेंस इक्विपमेंट एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा है।
Over 800 global aviation companies and 98 countries are taking part in Asia's largest air show, aimed at giving a never-before boost to India's desi aviation sector. With Saga Raj and Akshay Dongre in Bengaluru, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, I spent a couple of hours here at Aero India trawling through the big ticket, most visible items, something that has a big story behind them. Here's a look with my ground reports of the biggest eye catchers here at Aero India. Now, one of the biggest attractions, and no one should be surprised, at Aero India 2023 are the pair of aircraft that you see behind me. In case you haven't recognized them already, these are the F-35 Lightning II. They are fifth generation fighter aircraft and the latest fighters to be developed by the United States. They're in service with the United States, but you're wondering what the hell are these two aircraft doing here at Aero India? Let me first tell you that the F-35 is making its debut here in India. These aircraft have never been in Indian airspace, certainly never on Indian soil, and here they are at the Yelahanka Air Base. The big question that we're asking right now is, why are these aircraft here? Remember, whenever an aircraft breaks cover, makes its debut here at the Aero India show, it basically means that there's something afoot. We can tell you here on India Today that the F-35 has had an India connection for a very long time. Over a decade ago, the F-35 was said to be unofficially in contention for an Indian Navy requirement, but it has always remained on the sidelines of the Indian Air Force's own requirement. For a very long time, remember, the Indian Air Force has been trying to get fighters. They've been trying to get, modern, multi-role, new generation fighter aircraft. Not been very successful. They managed to get a few Rafales a few years ago, but Lockheed Martin, basically the company that builds and develops the F-16 fighter, has been unsuccessful so far in selling F-16s here in India for various reasons, and the F-35 is basically the successor to the F-16s. This is the fighter that has replaced an entire generation of fighter aircraft in the United States Air Force, from Harriers to F-16s to F-15s to other kinds of aircraft. And now, for this fighter to come here at the Aero India show sends out a very big message. Is the United States saying, we want to offer you now the best? Are they trying to change the game for the Indian Air Force by saying, we're going to open up the doors to a fifth generation fighter for you? Is this something that will impress the Indian Air Force and the Indian government? Now, that's a tantalizing question to ask. What is beyond doubt, however, is that the F-35 has been one of the most expensive aircraft to develop by the US Air Force and the United States government. It has taken a long time coming. It was a fiercely fought battle, but the F-35 in many ways has proven itself. It still has various technical problems, many troubles, but for the F-35 to be here today, courtesy the US Air Force, courtesy Lockheed Martin, which has been extremely aggressive in its pitch to the Indian Air Force, sends out a firm message that the United States means business as far as India's requirements is concerned. Now remember, Aero India has also been about the big buzz over India's biggest military contracts. And now I'm going to show you how things have changed over the years at this particular show, but some things remain the same. And one thing that has been a consistent appearance at the Aero India show is this aircraft you see. That's the Boeing FA-18 Super Hornet. It's a US Navy fighter. It is in operation with many air forces around the world, and Boeing has tried for a long time to make this the newest asset of the Indian Navy. Now, the Indian Navy is looking for new generation deck-based fighters to populate its new generation aircraft carriers like the INS Vikrant. So far, the Indian Navy hasn't been successful in landing new aircraft for its aircraft carriers. It currently operates only the old generation MiG-29Ks from Russia. The LCA Navy, the indigenous LCA Navy, has proven itself quite well by showing itself worthy of landing on its new generation aircraft carriers. But the F-18 and its competitor from France, the Rafale, happen to be the only new generation fighters, and I'm talking about the fourth generation, that are still capable of carrier-based operations. But let me tell you that the F-18 in the recent reports in Indian media, doesn't have a lot of reason to celebrate, because by all accounts, it looks like the Indian Navy, after testing the F-18 and its competitor from France, the Rafale, it has indicated its preference for the aircraft that all of us here in India are familiar with, the Dassault Rafale of France. That's the aircraft right here. Now, the plane you see here, of course, is an Indian Air Force version, not a carrier version. But we are told that the Rafale is the aircraft that the Indian Navy has expressed a preference for, because they find it to be much more compatible with its aircraft carriers. A lot of testing has already taken place in Goa. Some simulation tests have also taken place earlier. The Indian Air Force, the Indian Navy have been talking to each other. They believe that commonality might be a good thing if both the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy operate the same kind of aircraft. There will be cost savings in terms of spares and maintenance. But that aside, the fact that the Rafale has been indicated as a preference makes it an explosive decision. And here you've got the Rafale and the Super Hornet, separated quite symbolically by the light combat aircraft itself, which is not in play as far as this contract is concerned. But the very fact that both these aircraft are here at Aero India is a demonstration of the huge interest that the biggest weapons and aircraft makers in the world have in the Indian market. Will the Indian Navy get a decision sometime soon? Who knows? Will it be the Rafale? Will it be the F-18? We'll have to wait and see. If you're coming to the Aero India show in Bengaluru, please make sure you get a chance to get up close with this absolutely terrific beast behind me. In case you haven't already recognized it, and I'm sure most of our viewers already have, that's the AH-64E Apache. It's an Indian Air Force Apache helicopter. It's from one of the two squadrons that are currently operated by the Indian Air Force in the north and the east. Now, the helicopter that they've brought here, if you notice up there on its head, that's called the longbow radar. The hat that you see above the rotors is what makes this helicopter absolutely lethal. The Apache is one of the most war-proven helicopters. It has had an enormous amount of experience, across battlefields in Afghanistan, Iraq, several other places as well. And the specimen that they've brought here to Aero India, as you can see, is armed to the teeth. It's got Hellfire missiles. It's got one of its rocket pods. It's got some other anti-armor weapon systems as well. And these are helicopters that, as soon as they arrived in India, they were almost immediately put into operational service. Some of them were based in Chandigarh and Pathankot. They were sent out to Ladakh. They were operating from Ladakh during the Indian standoff with China, which continues even now. Many of these helicopters continue to operate in Ladakh. So they've had actual frontline experience with the Indian Air Force as soon as they started arriving. Now, 22 of these helicopters are in service currently with the Indian Air Force. The Indian Army is going to get 6 of these helicopters. They're going to look very, very different from these. These have that beautiful, Tipnis grey color, as it's called. But the Indian Army's Apaches will wear a sandy texture to mimic a desert kind of camouflage. Those helicopters will come online from next year. Another interesting facet about the Apache, which will for those who are wondering about expensive imports that India has to continue to incur year after year, much of the Apache's body, the fuselage, actually happens to be built right here in India. A large part of the Apache fuselage that you see here, the main body, is built in Hyderabad by a joint venture of Boeing and the Tata Group. And not just for the Indian Army or the Indian Air Force, but for global customers of the Apache. It's an expensive helicopter, but it's also a highly capable one. But there are benefits for India in this helicopter being bought by more customers, because they are being built just outside Hyderabad, providing thousands of jobs to airframers and skilled workforce in that particular area. So one of the big success stories for outsourcing and made in India has in fact been this iconic, legendary American helicopter, a large part of its body of which is built right here in India. I bet many of you didn't actually know that. So 22 of these for the Indian Air Force. The Indian Air Force actually wants many more of them. 6 for the Army. Who knows how many more? A total requirement of about 60 helicopters is what one understands the real requirement by the Indian Air Force is. The big AH-64E Apache. One of the biggest moments in recent memory for the Indian Air Force, for Indian aviation, obviously has been the Balakot airstrikes. And that's one of the reasons why the Indian Air Force is always proud to bring and flaunt its beloved Mirage 2000 here at Aero India every single time, no matter what. It happened in 2021 and the aircraft is back. But there's something special about this aircraft that nobody else is going to tell you. What if I told you, viewer, that this was one of the Mirages that actually took part in the Balakot operation? You heard me right. This is one of the Mirages, we can confirm, that participated in the Balakot operations. Take a look very closely at the belly of the aircraft. The bomb you see slung down there is a Spice 2000 bomb of the very kind that was used to bomb the Jaish-e-Mohammed safe house outside Balakot town in Pakistan. You can see certain other armaments, you can see some drop tanks as well, but the main weapon of this aircraft used in that operation was the Spice 2000. It's an Israeli 2,000-pound guided weapon that was fired from airspace above Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It travelled all the way in bad weather into Pakistan and smashed down into that safe house, and a large number of terrorists were killed in that operation. Now, there is a lot of soft messaging in seeing an aircraft like this standing here in broad daylight, totally in the open, looking, rather innocent, but obviously really deadly, because this is an aircraft that actually caused a lot of harm to India's enemies. The Balakot airstrikes have already gone down in history, but the fact that a Mirage 2000 with the same kind of weapon system and the same aircraft that participated was part of that pack of Mirage fighters that dared to cross the line of control, go into Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and unleash those weapons into Balakot shows that India continues to send out that strong message. If we are harmed, this is what's coming after you. The helicopter you see behind me, the light utility helicopter, is the same one that Prime Minister Modi inaugurated before its handover to the Indian Army just a few days ago, just outside Bengaluru. You remember that, right? Well, here at Aero India, there's no shortage of politics. That's right, the politics has exploded over Aero India, coming as it does just a few short weeks before the Karnataka election. Take a look.
Made in India, jets and choppers soared across the skyline of Bengaluru at the Aero India 2023.
आज भारत की संभावनाओं का, भारत के सामर्थ्य का प्रमाण हमारी सफलताएं दे रही है। आज आकाश में गर्जना करते तेजस फाइटर प्लेन्स मेक इन इंडिया के सामर्थ्य का प्रमाण है। आज हिंद महासागर में मुस्तैद एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर INS विक्रांत मेक इन इंडिया के विस्तार का प्रमाण है।
On ground, politics in the pole-bound state of Karnataka also took flight. Asia's largest aero show was inaugurated by the Prime Minister to showcase India's potential to the world. But that didn't stop the Congress from taking political potshots, calling his visit political tourism.
PM is a political tourist. He comes every time when there are elections. When we actually needed the Prime Minister during COVID, when the people were suffering, he was never here. We actually needed Prime Minister in the water sharing disputes. He was not there. Now he is coming because the elections are there. So why should we be scared? People know that this Prime Minister is an election campaigner, not the Prime Minister who delivers for the people.
Modi ಅವರು ಅಮಿತ್ ಶಾ ಅವರು ನಡ್ಡಾ ಅವರು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಆ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ವಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ. ನಾನು ಮೋದಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ನಡ್ಡಾ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅಮಿತ್ ಶಾ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸಲಹೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಡೆಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದು ಬರೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ತೊಂದರೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ವರೆಗೂ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ಬಿಡಿ ಅಂತ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸಲಹೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ.
The BJP was quick to counter the Congress's attack, saying that the party was scared of the Modi factor and that every visit by the Prime Minister to Karnataka will ensure a spike in BJP vote share.
कांग्रेस डर गया है। मोदी जी कब कर्नाटक आता है उसको पता है, उन्हें एक एक विजिट में कम से कम 5% 2% से 5% वोट बढ़ाता है, वो मालूम है. उसके वजह से डर गया है.
ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ನವರಿಗೆ ಪಾಕಿಸ್ತಾನದವ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಬಹಳ ಪ್ರೀತಿ, ಹಂಗಾಗಿ ಮೋದಿ ಕೆಟ್ಟರೆ ಭಯ. ಯಾಕೆ ಮೋದಿ ಭಾರತಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಬಾರ್ದ, ರಾಜ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಬಾರ್ದ? ರಾಜ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಹೆದರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓಡೋಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಭಯ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಟೀಕೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಟೀಕೆ ಮಾಡಬಾರದು ಅಂತ ಕಲ್ಪನೆನೇ ಅವ್ರಿಗಿಲ್ಲ. ರಾಹುಲ್ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಕರೆಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಮುಂಚೆ, ಯಾಕೆ ಕರೆಸಲ್ಲ? ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬರೋ ಓಟು ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ಲೆಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಹುಲ್ ಗಾಂಧಿ, ಪ್ರಿಯಾಂಕಾ ಗಾಂಧಿ, ಸೋನಿಯಾ ಗಾಂಧಿ ಯಾರನ್ನೂ ಕರೆಸಂತ ಸ್ಥಿತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅವರು.
The countdown to state of war Karnataka has already begun, and as elections draw closer, expect the political dogfight to only explode. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, the Indian Air Force is set to get a whole bunch of new fighters. It already has some new generation fighters. What it doesn't have is a supersonic lead-in fighter trainer. Many of the aircraft it stands to get don't have trainer versions at all. So what actually will fit that requirement? Take a look.
Big boost to self-reliance in military aviation. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited has unveiled the prototype of brand new supersonic fighter trainer aircraft HLFT-42 at the Aero India show in Bengaluru. The full-scale model of the new fighter trainer has generated big buzz, not just among aviation buffs and experts, but also among regular visitors. The reason? This image of Lord Hanuman on its tail with the caption, "The storm is coming." Bajrangbali is portrayed carrying a mace in his hands, symbolic of self-sovereignty, the authority of governance, and the power to rule.
The world is moving from 4th generation to 5th generation aircraft, and this aircraft is also capable of training our pilots as far as the new technologies are concerned. Superior kinetic performance suit to train for a twin engine fighters, sustained endurance for practicing multiple combat situations, which means that whatever the situation may be like, there will be a training that can be provided by the HLFT-42.
Dedicated aircraft which will teach pilots everything about combat on a dedicated aircraft along with all the other pilots together and graduate him like a PhD will passing out from HLFT, and then he will go to operational squadron without wasting time. He is combat ready.
The high-performance platform incorporates an ultra-modern cockpit and a full complement of combat sensors, weapons, and operational capabilities. With the new HAL jet trainer, pilot trainees get to not only experience supersonic flight, but are exposed to a very fighter-like environment before actually graduating to frontline fighters. The new trainer will allow the Air Force to fill a tiny but crucial gap in its exhaustive pilot training regimen. What's more, in a war-like scenario, the HAL trainers can be quickly weaponized as light tactical fighters if the need arises. Best of all, it's a fully indigenous solution to a present and future problem that will only increase. Currently, fighter pilots go supersonic only on frontline fighter jets like the MiG-21 or Su-30. With Shiv, Aroor in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
I also wanted to tell you about a story we've been tracking from IIM Lucknow, where a huge controversy has broken out after a professor was caught abusing the armed forces. It's blown up into a huge issue. Take a look at this report by India Today's Akshay Dongre.
The Indian Institute of Management in Lucknow is caught in a controversy after a faculty member is accused of insulting the armed forces. An Indian Army officer wrote to the Ministry of Education alleging Professor Ajay Garg insulted the forces by calling them cheats. According to the complainant, a colonel who doesn't want to be named, Professor Ajay Garg allegedly said aspirants clear armed forces professional exams by cheating. The alleged incident took place when a batch of army officers were attending a program for defense services at the IIM. Following the colonel's letter, the Ministry of Education issued a notice to IIM Lucknow over allegations of inappropriate conduct by a faculty member inside the classroom. The accused professor hasn't issued an apology so far. IIM Lucknow in a statement said, the issue is between two public institutions of repute, IIM and Indian Army. We have resolved it 3 months back. The incident has caused an uproar among the armed forces fraternity. Now an NGO working for the welfare of armed forces has written to the president seeking action.
इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ मैनेजमेंट के अगर किसी प्रोफेसर साहब ने ये किया, ये बोला है, तो आई एम नॉट श्योर व्हाट द फैक्ट्स आर, बट द फैक्ट इज दैट दिस इज डिस्टर्बिंग। एक तो सेना आपके लिए लड़ रही, मर रही, सैक्रिफाइस कर रही, एक ऑनरेबल प्रोफेशन है इस देश में, और सारी दुनिया लगता है इसी के पीछे पड़ी है कि साहब इनको गाली दो, गाली गलौज करो। नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल, एब्सोल्युटली नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल। द लीस्ट आई थिंक, अगर ये चीज सच है तो एक आई थिंक एन अनक्वालिफाइड अपॉलजी इज कॉल्ड फॉर।
Prestigious educational institutes like IIM Lucknow are meant to impart knowledge in the future leaders of our country. And while a professor at IIM Lucknow questioning the integrity of our armed forces is a shocking case, what is more shocking is the fact that even the institute has not taken any action against the accused professor or has